And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have one returning good brother and a couple of newcomers into these hallowed halls. Coming to us from the multi-headed monster that is Hound Games, and the current developers of the soon-to-be kickstarting single die system, specifically its fantasy version. Why don't you? I know we have Jason Chambers, but for the new folk, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Derek Pierce.
James Benedict.
Which James has been here before.
Yeah. I think it was just having a different profile pic that threw me off.
That's okay. We'll blame it on it. We'll blame it on the drinking.
Blame it on the drinking, and don't you guys have a running thing where it's always Derek's fault?
Yes.
It is always Derek's fault.
Absolutely.
So, obviously,
If you want to take up that mantle, feel free. You can blame Derek for everything.
it wouldn't be too much of a stretch. I already have one person in my usual group who I don't go out of my way to pick on him, but he does things that make me question his sanity at times.
No, Derek doesn't do things. Derek just exists, and it happens.
Well, I think I've heard those comments from my gaming group once. I played a game with James when we were testing this at the con where I don't think I rolled above a 10 for about an hour and change.
I'm fairly certain no one allowed you to touch your dice for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing. If I touch their dice, it's pretty heinous. They get pretty ticked off at me.
I can't necessarily blame them because have you ever heard the expression, there are no atheists in foxholes?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe that is just as applicable for gaming tables, if not more so. Especially when it comes to dice. I have seen people give others the stink eye about sharing dice.
Oh yeah.
Some of it is because
Dice are sacred.
Yeah, everyone wants to hoard the shiny math rocks. Yes, doubly so if you were in those really bad cases of Shadowrun games where you had pounds of dice you're throwing.
Everybody's got their own little rituals and superstitions about dice, though.
I've told people that it's bad luck to expect me to have all the snacks. You better bring some yourself. I didn't actually believe that. I just wanted to con them into bringing stuff so I didn't have to handle everything.
Nice.
Smart.
Nice.
Of course, they didn't know that until they told them after the fact. Or I've made it clear that if you do something sufficiently stupid or you try cheating, you get punished with the punishment game.
Then we have to ask, what is the punishment game?
You have two choices. One choice is pain. You can either drink a bottle of baking soda
Ooh.
No thanks.
or drink the pain glass, which is a shot glass filled with water, salt, sea salt, pepper, black pepper, Tabasco sauce, sriracha, Frank's Red Hot sauce, and 1 drop of the bomb.
You suck.
I
That's
changed my
horrible.
answer. I'll take the baking soda.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, people want the baking soda.
and I shouldn't say that's bacon, BACON. I'm not having people drink Armored Hammer or something.
Ah.
Well, that's good at least.
Well, the idea is create a punishment so cruel that no one be willing to try their luck again.
I would agree. I think that's a pretty harsh lesson that you should only ever do once, if ever.
In the last 10 years, I've only done it twice. Because one time is usually enough to get the message across.
You haven't had anybody that wants to do it on purpose just to poke the bear and say that they have?
No, people are less willing to poke the bear when everybody's 5 foot nothing and I'm over 6 feet.
Yep.
I mean, I did a Helltini challenge in Salem, Massachusetts, which consisted of a lot of stuff and habanero extract in a martini glass that they claimed was a shot. I'd be willing to do yours if it came with a free t-shirt.
It doesn't. But
I got the t-shirt.
I do remember on a birthday years ago having friends buy me what was called the bartender special, which was basically the mung rag drained out and anything else that had been kind of spilling off from the other drinks of the night.
that is disgusting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So let's get to the single die system. Now, as I understand it, this is a setup where the only die that you are ever rolling, if you are ever rolling dice at all, is a D20.
Correct.
Now I can see that. Now I did do a bit of digging to see if I had any other games that are doing this sort of roll high D20 exclusive thing. One of the main ones that came up was games like Atlantis, the Atlantean trilogy and its successors. But with this one, are you going full point? That one was a full point buy affair, and from what I understand with what you're doing, you are going with a class system in a sense.
Yeah. So I took some of the bones from Mythos, because Mythos started out was supposed to be very simple, and it didn't end up that way. But I wanted to go very simple on this, so we kind of used some of the same things here. So instead of going levels 1 through 20, we took what worked in Mythos, which was a non-linear leveling system. We're still using the adventure points, which is your XP. It's kind of like a point buy. You still buy certain things with your adventure points. That's how you level up. And you go there. So it's kind of a hybrid. So it's not a linear, we're going to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. Here you get to pick and choose what you want to buy, how you want to spend your experience points, and then build your character out from there. But again, we still have the same. We have a lot of similar classes that I think people will find familiar: fighter, mage, thief, priest, bard. And then we added some other ones where Now we have a healer herbalist.
Mhm.
So we now have something that you don't have to have a priest all the time. We did add one of our other ones that we call Soulbinder, which is something that we can go in a little later, but we did there. And then we took some new takes on the Alchemist, the Ranger. Trying to think, what am I missing? The Monk.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember
What am
when
I-
we were when we were doing this, when we were going to do this interview a couple weeks ago. We ended up going into a bit of a digression on the ways to do monk properly and the ways to not do it.
Yep.
Um,
Monk is tough. I got to be honest with you. Monk is tough. Monk and priests. I hate designing monks and priests.
Well, there's been entire games designed just for those.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I think it can be done, but it's more of when you're using lingering DNA from games that those kind of archetypes aren't really designed for, or you're operating with a limited base. Uh, is the I think that's where the problem comes in, because I've seen good monks in fantasy games, and I'd say the easy way to do it is look at the ways it's been done in the early days and not do that.
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, because of our conversation with the monk, I went and pulled the 4E stuff
Mm-hmm.
and was looking at the monk from the 4E stuff because we were talking about that. So I specifically went over and looked at the 4E stuff for the monk.
Yeah. And I know some people have this massive hate boner for 4E, but I think a lot of people who proclaim that barely even looked at the game, or only were relying on second and third hand looks at it. But since you are doing classes in this non-linear affair, would that mean that it would be relatively easy for someone to multi-class just by spending AP?
I think you can get a portion of the multi-class in there. So we opened up feats. So feats are not just tied to whatever class. Feats are open to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you're looking for the quote unquote multi-class, that'd be the way to do it. We opened skills up. We opened up a lot of things where people would have to dip in and out of classes to get armor, weapons, feats. You just buy them here. There's no reason to multi-class. As a matter of fact, I think when we were talking about this, I made this to where there's no rules for multi-classing. You just go off of feats and skills.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of one of the things that I think not having a traditional leveling system kind of helps with, because everything you see with systems that do let you multi-class, typically it's, well, you got to take a 1-level dip or a 2-level dip in this other class. But like Jimmy said, a lot of the things that maybe have the design aesthetic for that 1 or 2-level dip can be found within feats and skills and things like that. And that allows your main class choice to definitely have your primary identity, but then you can specialize or tweak that identity with all the subsequent things that you buy.
Mm-hmm. And since you brought up feats, there's one particular thing that feats have been plagued with in one form or another that is worth addressing. Are any of you familiar with the concept of the feat tax problem?
No, I don't think I've ever heard it.
yeah, I haven't heard that
All
one
that,
either.
right?
The feat tax often referred to in order to get certain feats that you actually wanted, you had to meet a bunch of prerequisites in order to get that. And when you have a
Oh.
limited amount of acquisitions of feats, that makes it even more troubling. My brother and I call it "pay to not suck," and our poster boy for this kind of thing is the whirlwind attack feat in 3E. Just because of the sheer amount of stuff that you need to get in order to get whirlwind attack, including getting a few feats that, when you look at them, don't seem all that useful to you, or are very situational, but you need to get them in order to get what you actually want.
I know one of the things that Jimmy really wanted to focus on was not having super in-depth feat trees. Like, we do have a few, but it's not anything where you're like, I gotta take 2 feats from this tree, then branch off and take one here, just to come down here and take this third one. Like, that was, like Jimmy said, the basic idea was, keeping things simple while still keeping plenty of options.
Mm-hmm.
The thing too is for every for every feat tree. So if you're talking like the alchemist feat tree, we put in 10 standalone feats, and then we did the feat tree only consists of 3 feats, and you can dip in and out of those. Now, if you're going to do the feat tree, obviously it's scale, so you're going to have your requirements, right? You can't go to the 3rd feat unless you have 1 and 2. So in that instance, yes, you have your quote unquote feat tax. But if you don't want to take the feat tree, but you want an alchemical feat, you can grab it. If you want a standalone fighter feat, you can go grab it.
Yeah.
Again, that's to your point, right? It's kind of like the spell progression. I see it in GURPS, right? Like, to cast Fireball, I got to take all the other stuff to get the Fireball.
Yeah.
That I'll probably never use, but I really want Fireball.
Yeah.
So
as a refresher with whirlwind attack, this is what you need in order to get it. Which all that whirlwind attack is basically, it is essentially the spin attack you've seen in any Legend of Zelda game in the last 20 years. But in order to get it, you need a Dex and Intelligence score of 13, and a base attack bonus of 4, and you need 4 different feats: combat expertise, dodge, mobility, and spring attack.
Yeah, no, we don't have any of that.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to with the feat text. The things like feat chains in that sense, those I've never had a problem with. In fact, one of my favorite D20 games, Fantasy Craft, does that as well. Any feat tax is in these 3-tier chains, and each one is usually useful in some form, and some of them are cross compatible with each other. The point being, when it comes to those sort of feats, it's important to make sure that each individual one has its purpose, instead of being just a stepping stone. Otherwise, you end up with a false choice thing where you're planning out your advancement setup way in advance just to get what you actually are shooting for.
Yes, and I see where you're going. And then we try to make, I think when we were doing the feats, we were trying to, again, like you're saying, right? Like, you don't want one in there just to fill empty space. So we tried to make the feats usable at every step. So it would make sense, like, if you wanted to be a poisonous specialist with the alchemist, you take in that tree, every step progresses actually is useful when you're doing like poisons. Or if you want to just be a potion brewer, it's the same thing, right? So we tried to make it all feel as if you're taking these, you're spending your experience to get them. They should be worth your expend, right? The juice should be worth the squeeze. So we just try to do that and not just put in empty space just for the sake of saying, oh, here's 3, and let's go ahead and do that. We didn't want the quote unquote dead levels in between the feats. But again, you could take the standalones and work your character that way, and you can pull from anyone. There's no prerequisites for any of the feats.
And speaking on classes for a bit, there's a few other classes that I've gotten the short end of the stick over the years, though. In recent years, there's been some reevaluation for that. That I did want to touch on, and one of them, of course, being the good old fighter. Fighter has had a rough go of things because of the reputation of being the basic archetype, being Babby's first character essentially. And
yeah, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
How do you guys plan on addressing that? Because I think with a more non-linear approach, it's a little harder to do Babby's first character in that basic attack sense.
I think when we started off right off the bat, you're going to get more attacks, and then we also, if you have a chance to look on the momentum charts, we had combat maneuvers. Now, everybody can use the combat maneuvers, but in doing so, the fighter is the only one that gets bonuses to everything. So we wanted to make the fighter feel like a fighter. And one of the some of the feedback we received at Derek, I think it was Gen Con when we were in the first impressions.
Yeah.
Where they were commenting that, oh my gosh, you actually didn't nerf the fighter. Like he was on the back of the sheet, and he could do like all of a sudden you could do all these cool things as a fighter. So again, there's only so many ways you can swing a sword. But in our case, if you're going to swing a sword, we wanted him to do it well, use the combat maneuvers well, make him stand out in that sense of my job is a fighter. Let's go ahead and go do that.
Yeah. The big problem I've always had when it came to fighters is the fact that one could argue. I know some will argue, they can do that basic attack better than others, but it's again lipstick on a pig. No matter how much you try and slice it, it is still just basic attack. And I remember getting stories of certain playtesters and when they. Including one by a friend of mine, whenever the fighter would get anything interesting, some of the caster players in those same playtest groups would throw a fit. Say, with the argument of fighters aren't supposed to be powerful. Which, if that's the case, why is Conan one of the big fantasies?
Right.
Very true.
I think one of the things that James did when he really wanted to make sure that he gave more love to the fighters is they really do kind of serve in a way to kind of help cement the party together, because not only do they have different takes on these combat maneuvers that he just mentioned from the charts here, but they have the ability to kind of impose disadvantages and do other things that actually help the group as a whole. So they're not just the ones that, everybody just says, hey, just hurry up and go up there and swing your sword and move on to everybody else. They literally kind of help bring everybody together in a cohesive way. So I think James did a really good job at that. And we got a lot of comments to that effect from the folks that were play testing it in the double exposure room at Gen Con and even at Dragon Con.
Yeah.
So I could give a quick overview real quick. So like for the fighter, right, since we're talking about that, you automatically start off, or you can start off automatically with your crit range at 19 and 20. So you're already getting a 10% chance of critting. You already get the extra attack. And then your heroic stand, as we called it, right? So I'm not going to read all the fluff, but all allies within 15 feet of you gain a +1 bonus to their attack roll for the duration of your heroic stand. And your heroic stand lasts a number of rounds equal to your proficiency modifier. So if you're all in there, the fighter can do this. Everybody benefits. So it's just someone buffing the fighter can now buff party members. So I wanted to again make the fighter a little more appealing to those.
Yeah, and since I mentioned the whole thing with caster, it's would it be with any class that is granting the ability to do magic? Is magic operating on essentially a spell point system, or is it operating on something else?
Operating on DC checks.
You have to So you have to roll whenever you're doing a spell. You don't get fire and forget.
No, you don't get fire and forget. The way we play tested it, it's pretty interesting because I was very nice by saying mages could just cast because kind of like using like we were talking about the old system in D&D where you get just X amount of spells a day, right? The slots. Hated the slots. I'm like you. I'm not a fan of the slots. You're a mage. This is your thing. A fighter doesn't swing his sword an X amount of times a day. You should be able to cast spells X amount of times a day. So I was just like, well, you know what? You can just go ahead and cast your spell. You don't have to make a roll because you know it, right? You just have to roll to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we're finding that mages were not getting the momentum points that other classes were because they were rolling the D20 more. Because I'm giving you the option to go ahead and not do it. And the feedback was, we want to go ahead and roll. So, because they want the momentum points.
Mm-hmm.
So now mages have to roll to have the spell go off, and then they have to roll to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we do give free castings to protection and utility. So if it's your proficiency level, so a test second level spell and lower,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to roll. They can just go off. There's nothing there. But damage spells always require a DC check, and you can cast that spell as much as you want. If you do roll a 1, obviously if you fail, you take the damage,
Mm-hmm.
and that spell is gone for the day. So that's how we balance it out.
Which is very much treating spellcasting as a game of chicken. Which I'm perfectly fine with. A while back I did a video that was me going into why I don't like the Vancian model for about 20 minutes. But I think one of the other things I did notice, and we kind of talked about this before we went live, is weapon variety. And you've got a bunch of different categories for different weapons.
Yes.
Was some of that just to make it so that martial characters have a lot more to do than just the ones that have been overly favored over the years?
It's for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not just for, and again, you can carry anything you want. We don't, I shouldn't say that. We do have like white weapons and such, but again, with your AP points, you can go ahead and buy it. So we wanted to let, if a mage wants to use a curved blade, let him use a curved blade. If he wants to use a rapier, let him use a rapier. Like I never understood why you can't do that. It's something to me is always perplexed me of, you want to run around with a great falchion, man? Knock yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not the best choice, but hey, man, go ahead. Right? So, but yeah, we wanted martial characters to do it. The other thing we wanted to do is flexible weapons,
Mm-hmm.
to where you can use these chain weapons and have it range. So you're not, so again, it's a mid-range, right? So you don't have to carry the big sword. You can go within 10 to 15 feet. You kind of get these little different bonuses. It gives you another option to go ahead and do. So you're not just stuck in, I'm swinging my polearm, I'm swinging my sword, I'm swinging my axe, I'm swinging my mace.
Yeah. And
I think at some point everybody gets a little bored with that.
yeah, I'd say one of the other issues is to reference the fighter for a moment again. There is the recurring thing of, the fighter can equip any weapon. However, the impact of that is lessened when the way a lot of people are going to equip their characters, they are going to be choosing one particular way and sticking to it, because the action economy drain to switch weapons in combat or switch weapons between combats makes the idea of carrying around a bunch of weapons at once a bit less appealing. And from what I'm seeing out of this, there does seem to be an incentive to have a variety of weapons instead of having just one act as your one size fits all.
So Jason and I had a conversation about encumbrance. right? So to me, encumbrance, I've seen in almost every game as a throwaway rule. Unless you're trying to do something like ridiculous, like I want to put the gold throne on my back and walk out of here. Okay, look, you're not going to do that. But aside from that, I don't know of too many GMs that are really hard on encumbrance. So we kind of kicked around how to do this. I didn't even want to put it in.
Mm-hmm.
Jason convinced me otherwise. So the slot system is there. I think we've given enough slots, as you say, to give a variety. We don't penalize you for switching weapons. We're not going to do any of that because honestly, Mildred, the one thing that stuck with me in designing the system is something you said in the first time we interviewed with you. And when you were talking about our game, the first one we did with Mythos, you said, it's not really heroic. It's pretty, but it's not heroic. And I was like, okay. So I kept that in mind on here, and I wanted to make something heroic because I kept hearing those words.
Yeah.
Those words were in my head. You were in my head. You were living rent-free in my head when I was putting this game together.
You were very much the impetus for this game. We were hard at work on Mythos, and Jimmy came to me one day. He just said, I can't stop thinking about what Mildred said in our last interview, and I think I need to step away for a second and think some things over. And then it was maybe, I think 6 months later, Jimmy came back to me and was like, so here's my idea. and it was, I will say it was a hard look, but it was a look that had to be made. That I still love Mythos to this day. I think what we made there is great. Still needs some work and tweaks, but I think Jimmy is right. One of the things we always heard about Mythos is, oh my God, this is like D&D 5.0 advanced or 4.75 or 3.75. It's everything that should have been the evolution of older style D&D, but with some of the modernization of the current D&D. And everybody looked at that as an advanced system. You could do literally anything. And then this, with single die, was very much like, this is our chance to have that introductory game, but not have it be so simple that it's boring. And that was the intriguing part, is how would we do that?
Yeah.
How do we keep it introductory, but exciting, fresh, and something that not only new players who've never played an RPG before want to try, but also your veterans who've been playing since first edition D&D back in the 70s.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Mm-hmm. And just to provide a refresher for those who didn't hear that interview, the reason I had said that is, when it comes to the idea of being heroic, I looked at the way a lot of fantasy games, especially some of the classic ones, treated the idea of heroic fantasy, and there was a bit of a conflict that I noticed. A lot of the things that are intended to be this sort of simulation of fantasy realism, very much were a product of the college history buff crowd, which a lot of the early role-playing game scene was. I'm not disputing that. I'm just noting it. But when I look at the characters in various types of heroic fantasy, whether it be Lord of the Rings, whether it be the Elric trilogy, whether it be more modern stuff like the Kingkiller Chronicle or Stormlight, I mentioned that before. The character who's just trying to get by isn't often the fantasy. It is often these larger than life individuals. And I feel like that's something that kind of got lost in the sauce. That you're supposed to be playing people who are by definition larger than life. And I'm getting that echo again.
Everybody mute who's not speaking.
Yeah, but that was the reason why I said it felt more simulationist than heroic at times. And I am a bit flattered that I was living that in everyone's head. But I think the other thing is when it comes to this being an introductory affair, this is as good a time as any to do that, because you're having a bunch of people jumping off the 5e bandwagon after the whole OGL fiasco from a couple years ago, and that memory is going to be fresh in a lot of people's minds for quite a while. And I might be a little bit biased because I was at ground zero for the whole thing. However, I have spoken on the issue of setting. You know, whether a game has a setting or it has a vibe or whatnot. Are you guys planning on having a particular setting, or are you going setting agnostic, just in the general vein of fantasy?
I'm going to let Derek and Jason take this one.
We have an idea in mind for certain areas in settings wise that we want to do, and this is something that we were talking about with the Kickstarter and otherwise. We've got a mention of it on the page that we have a lot of ideas in mind for a lot of different areas that we got a lot of input on and rich history with. And the funny part was, when we were doing the one shots at the cons, we didn't just kind of think of those as just a tester for the game. We subtly kind of introduced the ideas for certain areas of the realm to see how they would go over, and they generally were met very positively. So we're excited about some of that. But I mean, the whole point of the game coming out the way it is, without having that realm system built in already into the book, is that we want you to be able to take it and put your own 2 cents into that. Jason was talking to me about a lot of that, and I should probably let Jason kind of chime in on this one too. So Jason, please jump in on this.
So my whole thought when it comes to campaign settings is I prefer it personally when they are separated from the core rulebook. Reason being is there are plenty of people out there who love official settings and want to play in that sandbox. But I would say it's probably almost a 50-50 split that the other side never touches any kind of official setting and always uses their own. And for me, I thought it would be a good idea to make sure that the core rulebook, at the very least, is set to where you can use it anywhere. Will we have our own setting? Yes, it is something we are working on. We're dealing with some design issues with it, but it is coming, and we look forward to releasing that. But at the same time, everything in the book can be used in our setting when it comes out, or in your own setting. And later on, we'll come out with some more campaign setting specific stuff. Where you might have, for example, we have an area in our world called the Crimson Wilds. It's very much design aesthetic is based on like the Arizona Death Valley kind of area. Mm-hmm. So we could, have that released as a campaign setting because it is a rather large area. And then we can have the more specific things in there. Like we have already planned on there being a large orc population there. So we could have the regular orcs in the book, but then when we get to the orcs of the Crimson Wilds, right, their stats are a little bit different. They have maybe a little bit different abilities, or like a potential, cultural weapon or something to that effect, right? We have plans and ideas for it.
Yeah, and with that in mind, because my stance on the whole official setting or setting agnostic is, it's important to nail down which one you're doing, because I'm not going to say it's impossible to do both, but you can't do one and pretend it's the other. And you have certain specific things like specific races, the different gods for the priest class and whatnot. So I am curious if in a GM section or anything like that, you plan on giving some advice on how to modify those so that it can apply to other fantasy settings or whatever setting that a table already has.
I believe in, well, one, we have a conversion
Mhm.
in there, so you can convert your characters if need be. But as far as like GMs goes into how to convert, I don't know if I put in a lot in my GM section. I will say that. I don't know if I addressed that specifically. Give me a second here. Let me go take a look. I've got the book right in front of me. Let's see how I put in for my GM section. Let's see. What's rewards, encounters?
There's a section about converting to single D20 from other fantasy games. Things that are covered are things like challenge ratings and armor class, hit points, saving throws. I mean, like Jimmy said, we do have a lot in there. I don't think we have anything when it comes to settings necessarily. We do have information in there kind of guiding them on, environments in general, right? Certain things like the different, how to work, deserts differently than a rainforest, right? But nothing tied specifically to our settings. But again, I think that's in some ways a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think when James picked his the in deference to the priests, when James picked some of the stuff for the priests, he was very very almost archetypal in which ones he picked. It so really wouldn't take much effort to convert a priest of a nature goddess in our game to from a priest of a nature god or goddess in another game. So I think a lot of that stuff would still apply.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah, sorry, Mojo, you caught me on that one. See, if you would have said that in the first time we interviewed, I would have been right there.
You laugh, but he would have, and he may still.
Yeah, this could start a whole nother thing.
No. I'm not doing that. Again, if you go back and look at my GM section, it was more for how the GM should not be confrontational to players,
Mm-hmm.
the history of the GM, how to be again, more of the rule of cool kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not an us versus them. Let them go ahead and have it. Again, right? You're telling their story, so tell their story. And that's kind of like where I wanted to go with the GM portion, not be, I don't know, I don't want to say mechanical, but not be this is how you're going to switch it into the settings.
You have a really rich section too of random tables too that James put in the book. So if you are looking to kind of mix it up or go that route, there's some great suggestions for little starters or seeds that can definitely blossom later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a big thing for me, is providing that particular sandbox. I've described it as the blue bucket of Legos.
Yes, I wanted to give little seeds for them to drop and then grow with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Because everybody had the blue bucket at one point. But even with that, it's just as important to ensure that the options aren't too sprawling, because then you can lean into analysis paralysis.
Yes, which is why we went with random tables versus, hey, go ahead and do this. Roll a d20, pick it. If you don't like it, just grab something else from the chart, call it a day.
Yep.
Be done.
Yeah, a lot of the charts I've seen in some Japanese tabletop have that with the rule of roll or choice.
Yes.
So there's certainly a precedent there. But given that the full title of this is Single Die System Fantasy, and I realize this would be a more long-term kind of question, but has there been consideration, given that naming convention, has there been consideration towards using the system that you have here to try and tackle other genres?
Oh, I'm already ahead of you.
That was something that popped up, I think, right when we had first decided to start doing this, was the conversation of, could this be used in other settings, and should we balance things to where they can be interconnected? And that's kind of been our plan. I know I've already built a couple logos for some other things when we were talking about, sci-fi, eldritch horror, apocalypse, things like that. But one of the things I said to Jimmy is, wouldn't it be cool if, say, you wanted to have where your characters are in a sci-fi campaign and the ship crash lands on a fantasy world and they've never experienced magic or fantasy realms or anything like that before, you could have your characters crash, have their characters be out of the sci-fi book, and now they're on a world of fantasy and magic, and they have limited ammunition. And so now part of the story is, well, how do you interact with this new world? And the way we're building the system is it's completely power balanced, so it works. You can have a space elf meet a fantasy dwarf and, learn how to use a crossbow or whatever, or fight a kraken or something to that effect. But that was an important design decision that Jimmy and I both had when we were doing all of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can certainly get that, and even fantasy alone is a very wide net to work with. So there's no shortage of options there. But with that in mind, I know the Kickstarter for this hasn't launched yet. Do you guys have a planned launch date?
We should be launching tomorrow, assuming we get all the art in. But yeah, so let's be fair. Could be tomorrow, could be Wednesday. Might be a day out because of the artwork. But yeah, either tomorrow or Wednesday.
Tomorrow or Tuesday, whichever comes first.
Oh, okay. Tuesday or Wednesday. Sorry, my bad. I don't even know where I am today.
Yeah, I know the feeling. But and I'm guessing you guys are shooting for a Kickstarter run of what, 30 days?
Yes, 30 days. Actually, our funding goal is very low, which is not as, with Mythos, we were reaching. This time we're like, oh, you know what? We got Derek here. He works for Doritos. So, we're able to keep the price down like super low. So that helped us out. That helped us out a lot.
Well, that's really one way to do it.
But honestly, I will say this. One of the reasons why we're able to do what we do, and, like I say, we sent you the PDF of the book. Mm-hmm. So the book's already laid out. Like, this isn't we're going to do this, and then a year later you get your book. We already have the book. I mean, we're just going through now and just doing the final touch-ups based on the feedback that we received at Gen Con and Dragon Con. And to some extent, Southern Five Gaming, I think we had some there as well. But mostly Gen Con and Dragon Con. And so once it's actually done, if we're funded, I mean, we're talking 60, 90 days. The printer here is in the U.S. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of just touching some stuff up, getting it done, and getting it out. So it's been a much smoother project than Mythos. But I will say, to anyone who's ever tried to do this, yes, there's no book out there to go do it. I would say Jason and I learned a lot from Mythos. It was quite the experience. Dealing with artists.
Many of the lessons were what not to do.
Yes. Yes, there's a lot of what not to do's. And Derek has been intricate in that. Derek has been so helpful and a steady hand in all this, and having someone to rely upon to actually do it and not flake out and having to search and go around for that. So we thank Derek for that. I know that we give him a hard time.
It was nice to be at the cons and be able to put that book on the table and not be kind of all speculative about, well, this is what we plan on doing, this is what it's going to look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
we got some make, and a lot of those Gen Con and Dragon Con players made some really good suggestions, and we were like, we hadn't thought about that. Even the momentum system, when we first envisioned the momentum system, it was a lot more stringent. Mm-hmm. And then the players just kind of saw how much fun they had when they were able to kind of use it with more of an open floodgate kind of situation. And we were like, we got to change this. So that's really the kind of stuff we have. But definitely having people flip through the book and go, oh my gosh, and we were able to kind of address some of the stuff that we talked about in the book, like, hey, we used icons on the side of the page, stuff that you're probably used to seeing, whether it's in video games or otherwise. We used color coding. We're doing everything we can to kind of help drive you to get into the game as quick as possible and just really sit down and have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can get that, and I will look forward to seeing how this project culminates when the time comes. But with that said, I do want to sincerely thank you both for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my monastery and enjoy the madness that happens here.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we're sorry that you had to suffer through Derek's presence.
Look, man, you can reach out to us anytime. We are more than welcome to come here and chat with you. You are, it's awesome. You really are. It's a lot of fun. You're a wealth of knowledge. You bring up stuff that, again, that we wouldn't, we don't step back because you're so close to it. We don't see it. And like I say, that heroic thing, take that, run with it. Sit there and say, yeah, man, I was in that dude, because that was the driving, literally the driving force of it. Has to be heroic. As a matter of fact, when we were at Gen Con, the question I asked was, did you feel heroic? That was it. That was, I'm not, that is not a lie. I'm not here to boost you up. That was one of my main questions when we were done. Did you feel heroic?
I will.
Yes, and oh my God, these are first level characters. Like, it was great.
Oh yeah, but with that said, of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there'll be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
遅い上洛が上長年関税を往年関税を年々重心期年々不利し関税をラーメン釣りを釣りを釣りを遅い上洛が上昇で